Good morning, guys. Let's see. Disable the waiting room. Okay. Good morning, guys. How are you? Okay. All right. I got a recording today. I have a post-it note now. Right. Record. Mhm. All right. I'm gonna wait just a minute here. All right. Okay, so one of our students just found out a few minutes ago that their mom is in the hospital with a potential stroke. So if we could all just send a prayer to Kelly and her mama, um, you know, everyone send some loves, loves. I just love how themes work. We're going to talk about that today. Um, We're going to do a little questionnaire first, and I'm going to start doing something new just because the mentorships that I'm seeing now that I'm really diving into this planner, I'm starting to see like how much of each session you guys are actually getting. And as a teacher or as a guide, frustrating. Frustrating. So I really want us to take that opportunity to just ground for a minute and just be present. You know, if you can't be present, you're doing other things, then when you go back to watch it again, just allow yourself to be present because you're wasting a lot of your time and effort and energy and you don't want to be in class with one of your fractals. You want to be in class with all of your fractals. And that goes for whether you're listening to music or you're listening to a podcast or you're listening to your child. Practice bringing all of you in to everything you do. Number one, it's going to be uncomfortable at first because there's parts of you that want nothing to do with this. There's parts of you that want nothing to do with you. There's parts of you that want nothing to do with me. And this kind of goes for everything in your reality. So if you want to know where your blind spots are, invite all of yourselves into the things that you're doing. Because it's in that moment you will see your contradictions so obviously. You could literally just make a note on your phone and be like, we need to have a talk with so and so, right? Otherwise, you are literally just like, oh, we're in class now. So and so, you go to class. So and so, you go to class. Like guilt, you go to class, right? You need it. The rest of us, we're gonna go over there. And it's not serving you, right? We're going through one of the biggest shifts that this planet has ever seen in probably forever, because the last time we went through this golden age shift, we were in a different vibrational place. You know, we don't like remember everything and then forget everything. We don't remember everything and then forget everything every 27,000 years. No, every 27,000 years, we remember everything and we become more as we're becoming less. So this time in history has never occurred before, and the split is real. Like it is really happening where the world of I am, right, versus what I'm allowed to be. That's like the two worlds, and you're going to have that choice to make. And claiming your I am is not going to be easy if you have allowed your fragments to go and live such different aspects of your life that you don't even realize that everyone outside of you is you. Okay. So that's why I want to do just a grounding so we can call in all of our parts. Like guilt, you're allowed to be here. Shame, you're allowed to be here. Fear, you're allowed to be here, right? Loss, you're allowed to be here. Anger, you're allowed to be here. Like all of you are here with us now, and you're all loved. You're all accepted. You're all forgiven. Okay. There's nothing to fear. You're in misery loves company. You're with like-minded others that have the same fractures as you. Okay. This is like PT class for our inner ego parts. And we are going to reconcile this, whether one part likes it or not, right? And it's interesting. It's like the more that you study movies and books, you can kind of see that every character basis of a movie is based in these 5 different kinds of characters. Okay. Now they don't come off as the guilt, the shame, the fearful one, right? Let's take Breakfast Club. Okay. That's in our genre, right? Okay. So we got the outlaw. Okay. The one that's like mad at the system, long hair, bad boy. That's guilt. Then we've got the prom queen. That's shame. Okay. Then we've got the jock who's angry. Then we've got the nerd who's fearful. Then we've got the emo girl who is loss and grief. Okay. It's in every movie. And this is your 5 main fractures. Now, how they work in your discipleship is going to be that they take on extra identities. They take on positive and negative aspects of themselves. So the rebel, right? The bad boy, he's going to have a sensitive side. He's going to have insecurity, the jock who everybody thinks is like, captain of the football team. He's dealing with major anger issues at home. He can't be good enough for his father, right? Shame, the one that has to be, the prettiest and has everything together and has her future laid out, right? Is like hiding the fact that she, just wants to be like an emo at times, and then the only one that seems to be an acceptance of any of it is loss, which is the emo. And she looks like the craziest one out of everyone because she's wearing all black, right? Like playing with her own dandruff. Like it's that kind of reality. And we're looking at that like, oh, what's wrong with her? She's the only one not wearing a mask. And even that is a mask because that's not who she is either. So when you start to actually spend time with this handful of yourself, you start to realize that, yes, they are your disciples. But what I want us to really look at is that you are the teacher of this classroom. And the story I've shared for years is I used to teach first grade, and it doesn't sound like that'd be very scary, but it was really scary. Because these kids, first of all, they were almost as tall as me. And second of all, they all had their own, they were such parrots of their parents that they all were so young that they acted just like their parents. And I had the problem child. I had the autistic Korean boy. I had the tattletale. I had the teacher's helper, right? And nobody wanted me to be there when I first got there because it was a change. And they were all used to like being unruly and out of control. And they had gone through like 5 different teachers before I came there. And I tried to how to figure out how to make us all work together. And so I really want you to look at this inner family that the world has split you into. First of all, it isn't a split that is unchangeable. It's all about integration. So let's just take this moment and really like call all those parts back to ourselves, ground into the earth. Let the earth really magnetize your consciousness so you can be present. Bring that electricity into your body so that you can stay awake, right? And make an intention for yourself that you only have to watch this one time if you're sitting here. You don't have to watch this 3 times. You don't have to check out. You don't have to leave. You can participate no matter where you are or how you feel, because there's going to be a part for everyone in this session. And when you include everyone, then you stop feeling so alone. You stop feeling so unseen and unheard. You stop feeling like, well, everybody else is getting it but me, or I'm the one that's left out, right? Because there's always going to be that part of you unless you include that part. Okay? And then we're going to take a little questionnaire. Now you can either do this in your head or you can write it down. But I truly believe that really communicating with these different parts of you is going to be the way that you truly build compassion. And when you have compassion, that is when all of your healing will begin. Because until you can have compassion for the part of you that is literally walking, talking, thinking, desiring, acting, and speaking through you as nothing other than guilt, you're not going to understand some of your behavior and some of your manifestations, right? Each part of this is possessed a part of you. And if you guys watched the class, I asked you to do a little bit of mirror work on it. When you feel the guilt come up, go look at who you look like in the mirror. When you feel the loss, when you feel the lack, when you get the bill in the mail, when someone triggers you, go look in the mirror at who you are. Who is guilt? Because it ain't you. And your eyes are going to look different. Your skin is going to look different. Your expression is going to look. First thing I thought was, oh my God, that's my mom. Whoa, hello. And that was awakening. Okay. And then there was other moments where it was like, I don't know who this is. So you realize that you're walking around all day thinking that you are one you, and you're walking around as 5 to 12 to 25 different characters, depending on what is happening around you, right? You catch that version of yourself in shame, and you're like, this isn't me. I don't even know who this is. If you look through shame, you're not going to recognize that, because that is not how you see yourself in the mirror. It's like when someone takes a picture of you and posts it on Facebook, you're like, that's not me, right? That angle, like, who took that picture, right? That did not get approved. Okay. So we know that's how that feels. So if you can look at yourself angry, like, oh, that's my father, or that's my principal in 4th grade. I don't know. You've taken on that imprint. When you are truly sad, when you are truly lost, when you are confused, go look at yourself how you look at when you're distracted. Because the thing is all of these parts want you to want them. Just like I realized that every single kid in that class that was having their parents write letters, I don't want her as my teacher, blah, blah, blah. They all secretly wanted me to fight for them. They wanted me to choose them because no teacher had. And so I had to keep going through the fire with this 1st grade class, going through the fire. And that's exactly what this is like. Because these aspects of you were not trained, conditioned, or raised by you. They were raised by the pair of rentals of the society. They were raised by this system. Your guilt was raised by the system, not you. Your shame was raised by the system where you were never going to look right. You're never going to be right. You're never going to have enough. Okay? These parts of you are like your 1st graders. And you are the only teacher they have. Okay? And just like teachers, we know if we're practitioners, what are we doing? We're going to continuing education, right? All the time. That's what the teacher does. But the continued education does not teach your guilt, shame, fear, love, and loss. That's for you to learn how to teach them. So these classes you take, these podcasts you listen to, they do not reform your students. This is for you to figure out how to reform them. Then you've got to actually go and do the work. Does that make sense? This is why without embodying, you think, well, we watched the podcast, we had this big aha moment, and the class is like, what? I wasn't even there. I was over there. I was in the past. I was in the future. I was, worrying about what we're going to eat later. So you have to understand that you've got to then take that continued education and you got to ground it in your classroom. And your classroom is the trigger. Right? Your classroom is when the bill comes in the mail, when the diagnosis comes through, when your mom is in the hospital. This is your classroom. And how you show up is going to be, what did you learn in your continued education? Okay? All right, so let's do this questionnaire, because we've asked this Imagineering question a lot. And I've been asking everybody in mentorship this week an opposite expression of the question of, what would you do if money was no issue and time was no issue and health was no issue and there was no family conflicts, there was no space or geography issues, who would you be? Now, let me give you another question, because what that requires is all 5 of your aspects to be like, well, that's just not the case. So how can I think with that? Because your 5 aspects that are lost in trauma are trying to figure out how to survive. They don't even have a lot of interest in the game of who am I without this problem, because they are created as the problem. So many of us have been able to ask that question, but very few of us have been able to like hold on to that archetype and lean into her and him every day and truly become them. So I'm going to make it a lot easier for you. Okay. This questionnaire begins like this. If you woke up today with amnesia, you were all alone, you were not at home. So there's no one you recognize. Well, even if there were, you wouldn't recognize anyone. You have complete amnesia today. You're not in your home. You're not even in your city. Let's just say you're on a beach somewhere or a mountain somewhere, or you're somewhere comfortable and safe, so you can actually like you're not going to be like, why am I naked? You're actually somewhere where you can like really think about these questions. You're in a safe place, but you're not anywhere familiar. Okay? There's no mirrors around you. All right? You're just there. And you wake up with this amnesia. Okay? No info about yourself, no wallet, no pictures, no ID, no credit cards, nothing. Okay? First of all, my first question is, how old would you feel? If you'd be like, who am I? First, well, how old am I? Okay? Just feel into that. How old would you believe you were without any identification or matrix conditioning? Now, based on who you are in here, because that's all you're going to have. There's no ego to say. There's just this big GPS inside of you left. What would you believe your financial state of being was? Remember, no evidence of the past, no bank account information, just who you are in your soul. Would you feel like confident, like, well, I know I'm a multimillionaire, come on, right? Because you are, right? Would you feel like, well, this is just going to be easy as soon as I find my wallet? Like, how would you feel with no evidence of your story? Who you are is in your being. Based on who you are as a soul, where would you believe you lived? Right? You're looking at yourself, you're like, I know I'm a grown up. So I know I live somewhere fabulous. Right? Right? I mean, hello. I'm me, right? No conditioning. Remember, you have none of these parts with you. You wake up and all you are is I am. Right? Where would you believe you lived? Would you believe you had a family based on who you are in your heart? Would you believe that you were a mom? Would you believe that you had a family? Would you be like, I got to find my family? Or would you be like, I don't think I have a family? Remember, there's no ego. There's just the I am. And you want to write down, I believe I would be married. I believe I would be a mother. I believe I'd be a father. I believe that I lived somewhere tropical because that's what makes my heart alive. I believe I live somewhere in the mountains. So if someone walked up to you and was like, what's your name? You'd be like, how old are you? You'd probably tell them the age you thought. Where do you live? I know I live somewhere tropical. Where's your family? I don't know, but there feels like there is one. Do you realize that this is such a better foundation of who your soul is than trying to figure out who you are with your story without the story? You see, it's like starting at the beginning or the end to find the beginning. Okay, so that was very difficult for some of your egos that didn't have a big personality or a big imagination. But those of you who can, this is very logical because you're going past your identification story and you're going into the I am concept. Now, let's say this person is going to come up to you and they're going to say, where do you live? And you're going to go, I don't know, but it feels like this. I don't know, but it feels like this. I don't know, but it feels like this. This is all you have is the feeling. Okay. And they're going to say, well, what do you think you do? How do you serve the world? What would you believe you did with amnesia? Like, what would you believe that you did? Like, well, I bet just based on who you are. You have no idea what your education level is. You have no idea what your job is. You have no idea like anything, but there's this inner knowing of what you would probably be doing. And the last question is something that you're going to have to really sit with maybe for a week. Because it would be, then what would you do first? Would you try to go have people like help you find your family? Would you feel so lost and abandoned, or would you just really be with yourself? Like, what action would you take? Now, remember, you're not afraid because you feel wealthy, you feel the age that you feel. This person is very kind, and you have no information to give them other than how you feel about yourself. So, what would you do first? Right? Now, if you were in the I am state, you would probably know that all this information is somewhere inside of you. And you just be like, I'm just going to be with myself for a little bit and see if I can get more information. Or would you rush to the, police office and say, I don't know who I am, right? This is all we're here to do, guys, is just be with ourselves until we remember. And as this old conditioning starts to kind of wear away and you become the teacher and the parent to your own classroom, and you teach them that they are here to transform shame, they are here to transform guilt. There is a whole new name that they're going to be getting, a whole new role they're going to be getting in this new world. That they're not going to come with you as guilt. They're going to come with you as forgiveness. They're going to come with you as acceptance. They're going to come with you as, as love of connection. Okay. So they're all going to be coming with you, but they're going to be coming with you differently, which means the I am is all of those things. So there's no more separation because the I am is made up of acceptance, forgiveness, allowing, consideration, compassion, understanding, love. And it doesn't work in the cycles of death and rebirth because it understands that that is the same formula. Like there's cycles. It looks at your life like a cycle rather than life or death. It looks at your life like a season, not a bad or a good day. Like you're in a season. You're in the inflow and the outflow, right? And if you were in the I am state, you would know that if you have an abundance of breath, then you probably have an abundance of family. You probably have abundance of money. You probably have an abundance of homes because you have breath. And if you're alive, you're here for a reason. So I just want you to see yourself in this way for a moment. Because my mom just had a birthday and she turned 77. And, she wanted to make her own cake and, all this stuff. And she had the little 77 candle on there. And I asked her, I said, Mom, if you did not know how old you were, how old would you feel? And she was like, 45. She just like said it, like there was no pause. She was like, I'm 45. I was like, I love it. I said, so you should put 45 candles. She was like, I should have, because it's almost like we have to tell the truth of what the matrix has stamped on us. But I have seen when doing quantum fitness that we can put you on this $35 metabolic scale that actually shows you your cellular age. And every month in the training, you're going backwards, which means your cellular age is actually decreasing in age. The more vitality, magnetism, energy, joy, and love you bring into the body. This is why the more inner work you do, the younger you feel. This is why you must be like the child to enter the kingdom, because there's no grown-ups allowed here. And I'm not saying that we're not grown up, but what I'm saying is that when we think in the way of, I have to represent myself the way that the matrix represents me, I will never become free. Because you have that stamp, right? That matrix stamp on you. and you're like, I just had to order a birth certificate to get married. And it's like I guess back in the 70s and stuff, they don't put the time of birth. My doctor's name wasn't on there. I mean, it's like it doesn't even look real compared to what they have now. You know, you look at these kids now and it's like a contract, but like mine is like this big, and it's just like didn't even have my parents' full names on it. It was just like abbreviations, and I was like, you know, and that was like 75. So it just goes to show you that this whole identification of you has nothing to do with you. And the more you identify with it, the more trapped you get here. Does that make sense? Okay. So in the class, I talked to you guys about the mirror work, and I talked to you about renaming your guilt and shame. Okay. But before you can do that, before you can just be like, guilt, your new name is forgiveness, you have to understand how it believes it is helping you. Okay? Just like these kids in my classroom, right? They believed that their bad behavior or their tattletaleness or their teacher's assistant or whatever they were, they truly believed in their hearts of hearts that they were serving the whole by behaving that way. Because your guilt is fundamentally your CEO. The CEO of your company is actually your guilt because it's the seed level. Guilt is in the root chakra, where all of your seeds are planted. Now, guilt is part of the matrix stronghold. You must be guilted here in order to be a slave. Because if you did not experience guilt, you would never be able to be a slave. Because guilt says, I will punish myself. And as soon as there's a separation from creator, right? Anything in separation has duality. See, I am consciousness doesn't have duality. It's all inclusive. But when forgiveness turns into guilt, guilt has to separate. It has to become a victim and a perpetrator because it has to now survive in the wild of the matrix without the connection to creator. And so it has to go into a place where it has to punish others and it has to punish itself. It has to let others punish it. You see? So think of a relationship where you allowed someone to punish you because you didn't feel good enough. And then think of a relationship where you punished yourself because you didn't feel good enough. Then imagine a relationship where you punished them because you didn't feel they were good enough. We do this to our kids, we do this to our dogs, we do this to our houses, we do this to our friends, we do this to everyone when there is guilt present. And there is nothing that you're doing that the whole rest of the world isn't, so don't feel bad about it. It just is what it is. And it happens at such a loving way that you don't realize how dark and separate it actually is. And then as soon as you realize that you have to be punished for your light, you have to be punished for your existence, you have to be punished for asking what you need and want, your basic needs are being punished, then everything that you stand for becomes guilted. And in order to survive here and not go off and kill yourself, you have to create a mask around that named shame. Because if I shame myself, then I'm actually going to protect myself from getting more guilt. If I shame myself, then I will continue to punish myself. If I shame myself, then I'm going to keep myself small and hidden. Because when I was big, I got guilted. So when you're a child, you don't understand what self-worth is. The phrase that you hear is, I'm allowed or I'm not allowed. So what are you allowed to do? What are you not allowed to do? Who are you allowed to be? Who are you not allowed to be? What are you allowed to say? What are you not allowed to say? What are you allowed to have? What are you not allowed to have? The CEO manages all of this because the adult in you understands self-worth. The inner child is like, what's self-worth? It says, oh, either I'm allowed or I'm not. And what the child notices is that certain things that it's not allowed to do, it sees other kids allowed to do it. And as soon as that begins to happen, comparison is now introduced. And that's where shame really creates toxicity in one's life. Because let's say your best friend is an only child and she gets all mom's attention and she gets to go on this trip, but you're one of like 5 kids, and so your family doesn't have as much money to go on vacation, or you're not allowed to go, or allowed to have, or allowed to say because of some religion your family is in, or whatever, or allowed to eat or chew loudly. I've heard that. Like, then all of a sudden you're seeing other kids, other people, other the world doing something that you're not allowed to do. And now you feel ashamed of who you are because it must be you. Because other people are allowed to chew with their mouth open, right? Other people are allowed to ask for their basic needs. Other people are allowed to, go on a vacation. Like, I don't know what your family story was, but there were certain things that you were not allowed to do, have, be, say, feel in your own home that you watched other people do all the time. And the funny thing is if you look at your current family right now, your family is allowed to do things that you're not allowed to do. Take stock of that. Oh, my boyfriend, my husband, he's allowed to be angry. He's allowed to be sick. He's allowed to be, I'm not. I'm spiritual. You got to think about that. Oh, my aunt is allowed to have a tantrum and yell and scream and be a victim. I'm not. If you weren't allowed to be a victim as your childhood, you probably have a family member that's a very big victim that gets a lot of attention, even if it's negative, and you're just like, because you're always going to find what you're not allowed to have in your family allowed to have. And you actually support that. You support yourself not having it, and you support them having it, because that's your indoctrination. That's the way we punish it. Like, well, that's just who she is, so we have to let her be like that, but I can't be like that. That's just who he is. And so he doesn't know any better, so I have to allow him to be that way, but I couldn't be that way. I know too much. This is where the spiritual ego really starts to create toxic shame. Because now you're not allowed to have a tantrum or be angry or speak up or, do anything other than look perfect on the surface. And that's what shame does. Shame is either going to create the beauty queen or the perfectionist, or it's going to create the savior complex. Because I feel ashamed, so I want to save everyone else so they don't have to feel that way. Savior complex, martyr complex also comes from deep levels of guilt. I've got to save everybody else because I'm the bad one. Okay. So the thing is you really can't begin to parent or teach these aspects properly until you know who they are. You have to get to know them. And I'll tell you, I was probably in that classroom 6 months before I knew exactly what each one of those kids needed. And they all needed something different from me. And what's interesting is as I look back, I'm still friends with all those kids on Facebook because it was such a profound year. Not all of them, but probably 10 of them. They were all me. And I was just learning about what I needed by watching their behavior. And the ones with the worst behavior, the ones that were the most toxic for the classroom, were the ones that had the greatest level of leadership at the end. Okay? So your guilt is your CEO, which means who is running your company either into the ground or into the stars is your relationship with your inner guilt. You have to notice where you are punishing, depriving, abusing, criticizing, withholding, smothering, suffocating yourself. Because remember, it's not about, well, no, it's my brother that does it. No, you're allowing that because it goes back to allowance. Okay? So I think that this is a better way for us to get back to the center, because we're going to be talking about a lot of, like, when we talk about Jedi mind, what we're actually talking about is will. I don't feel like a lot of people understand will, because I didn't until I really dug in. We've heard of willpower, right? We've heard of my will is strong, but your will is actually your Jedi force. And I'll give you the example of this. Okay. Everyone, just think of your right hand, all right? And tell in your mind your right hand to lift. Just tell it to lift without lifting it. It doesn't move. That's your affirmation without will. So think of this, like, okay, right hand, lift. It's waiting on will. Okay, right hand, lift. Okay, now here's the affirmation. I am rich. Okay, now watch this. I am rich. Did you see me have a physical change? That's will. You have to introduce a silent physical change to make will activate, because will is beingness in motion. So one of the things that we're going to do once we get kind of these 5 aspects, in line and integrated into the I am, is using the will in a silent, stoic, powerful way. Which means that if you associated with I am rich with a big smile, let's try this. Okay, let's just say wealthy, because some of you feel like you're rich, okay? Wealthy is a little bit different. Wealthy is like overflow, it's residual, it's never gonna run out. And we all would like that, okay? So, just whatever your regular posture is, say, I am wealthy. And notice you probably feel crickets, nothing. Right? Like everybody inside of you is waiting for you to say, do something, okay? Or waiting for the outside to do something, and nothing's happening. Now think of, right, before you say it again, how would you stand? How would your posture be if you were? And how good it would feel. So this time when you do it, change your posture slightly and create a big smile and see if you can actually feel your sacral chakra when you smile. Okay, try this. I am rich. I am wealthy. You feel this in your sacral. You feel this in your solar plexus. That's your will activating. Now you go back here and here's guilt going, we ain't rich. Right? It's like this. It's like, this is shame. This is guilt, right? You can just walk around and see it all in everybody. This is shame and this is guilt. Guilt is when you can't make eye contact with anyone. Shame is when you don't want anyone to make eye contact with you. But have you guys noticed, since we've been blessing and smiling, and because we aren't in shame and guilt, we're in the light, we're in the I am. Blessing someone and smiling, that's your will. You're increasing your magnetism. You're increasing your center power. So one of the things that the Creator told me in meditation, a long time ago, and every day, because stubborn, is that I am the manufacturer of all of my abundance. I am the manufacturer. I am the astral bank. I am the distribution center. So it is only I that do not allow the abundance out. It's inside. And it requires will to activate it. This is why I want you guys to notice yourself in the mirror when you feel guilty or shameful or fearful or angry, because your will is going to look different. You've got to see that you're willing yourself into anger. You're willing yourself. You look different. You've taken on the possession and channeling of a condition, emotion, and a feeling that never belonged to you. Now you're going to use it. You're going to use that guilt as your testimony. You're going to use that shame as your testimony. And yes, it is your test and your trial right now, but it isn't you. So this one little boy, I know I've told you guys this story before, but his name is Vincent, and we're still friends on Facebook. He's like an amazing person, amazing human being. He was a senator's kid. And this kid was so bad. Like he was like a bad seed. Like he was like way too smart for his own good. He was hyper intelligent, hyper logical. He would criticize everything I did, everything I said, right? He was a first grader and he was way smarter than me. Okay, because he had to be. But he was a troublemaker. He would just get up and walk out of class. He would speak he's first grade. Okay? And I wanted him out of my class, just like you want guilt out of your body. And I went to the principal and I complained because I was weak and I didn't know how to deal with him. And I thought if this part was gone, we would be fine because he's the troublemaker. He's getting everybody else riled up. He's getting everybody distracted. He's saying something funny during this part of this important math lesson. He's getting everybody to stand up and do things. He's the problem. And basically his parents were big benefactors. So it was a private school I worked at. So they were like, suck it up. He ain't going nowhere. His parents pretty much owned the school. And so I would just like, I had so much fear going to class every day because I would have to face this kid. I mean, he was a bully and I was the teacher. Your guilt is your bully. And then it was one day, because, this kid was probably raised by nannies. It was one day I got to school early for some reason because I had been praying, like, either get me out of this class. I was looking for other jobs. But it was such a good setup because my girls were so little at the time, like preschool, that they could go to preschool for free if I taught first grade. So that was why I did this in the beginning, right? And so I was like, I'm not going to be able to afford daycare. I'm not going to be able for, so it was like I was stuck here. And there was one day where I got to school early and I was like trying to figure out what I was going to do. And this kid actually got dropped off by his dad, who was super hot, by the way. I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, he was gorgeous. Like, just very stoic and regal senator, nice three-piece suit. But you could just tell that he was like dropping his kid off with like no love, no grace, like pain in the butt. Like, I can't believe I have to do this. And you could just see Vincent's face was like, I love you, Dad. And this was a kid that was like hard and serious and mad at the world. But when he would look at his dad, he would just be like in this awe, like, I hope he notices me. And his dad was just like, yeah, whatever. And just like left him there. And then as soon as he turned around, he had his dad's face. And I was like, oh. And I just felt so much compassion. I mean, I still want to cry when I think about his little face. Because when he turned around, he was like no more like, well, I'm not going to get anything I need now. Like, I'm going to make it worse. And I thought to myself, what does this kid want from his dad? He wants to be appreciated. He wants to be seen. He wants to be valued. That's what he's doing in my class. He's not getting any positive reinforcement at home. And so he's probably the only way he's getting any sort of attention is if he acts up. And so I decided to promote him, not to kick him out of my class. I decided to promote him. I decided to make him my teacher's assistant. And all I did was start praising everything negative he did. If he interrupted the class, I would tell him he had amazing leadership skills. If he said something funny, I would say, you could be a comedian when you get older. I would praise every bad behavior he did in the right way. And all of a sudden he stopped doing it because he was kind of like getting embarrassed by it. He was getting embarrassed by the praise because he couldn't handle it. And then he tried to get out of my class. He tried to leave my class because he was so uncomfortable with his vulnerability. And so I remember one day after school, you know, I grabbed him, and I don't remember a series of events. It was like, I mean, seriously, my girls are 30 now, so it was a while ago. They were like 4 when this was all happening. I just told him, I said, I just believe in you. And you have qualities that I don't have. You're right. You are smarter than me in certain ways. And I could really use your help. And it was very heartfelt. It wasn't like I'm doing this to straighten you out. It was like, I need you, dude. Like I can't control these kids without you. They listen to you, not me. And of course, he wasn't like falling in my arms at that moment. He was like, whatever, but he started showing up differently. And he started to take pride in passing out the papers instead of getting the class all crazy. You see where I'm going with this is your guilt. And this is the only way you're going to transform it, is if you realize that it is secretly trying to protect you. Because if you let your light out again, if you show your heart again, if you share, who you really are again, you're going to get abandoned all over again. And so until you have compassion and understanding for your self abuse, for your own, desire to punish yourself when you are not perfect, when you are like dead set on making sure that you never have joy again because you've messed up in the past, right? You cannot heal shame, because shame is the CFO. Shame is the one that is actually going to distribute resources, inventory in the right way. So if the CEO is bad, then your CFO, the one who manages your abundance, your creativity, your co-creation, your distribution, your manufacturing center of how things are getting spent and all that, will never ever work well if the CEO is guilty. Because the way you receive money, the way you get money, the way you receive love, the way you give love, it will all be through the CFO. Okay? And then when you look at like your solar plexus, okay? The solar plexus is all of the employees that take the action. It's the whole company structure. But really, I would prefer if you guys looked at this like a classroom, where it's like this classroom, like, how do I have such memories 38 years ago, 37 years ago? Because it was such a profound year that changed my life forever. Because the tattletale, right? The teacher's pet, like, she was actually allowed to not be perfect anymore. But she actually had to get out perfected by Vincent, who was the bad boy, and then she didn't have a role anymore. And so it's almost like your ego death is when all of these roles start to crumble. And you're no longer leading with your guilt. You're no longer leading with your shame. You're not giving from guilt. You're not giving from shame. It's like all these parts are like freaking out because they have no job. That's what an ego death is. Is this like, who I've been and what I've been doing my whole life is no longer, like, I can't do it anymore. Because you start to go in and look at all these things, and what you pretty much do is you start to restrict it. You start to see that you were working at that job because of guilt. You were working at that job because of shame. You were with that guy because of anger. You start to see that the things that you were doing, feeling, saying, and creating were all coming from these parts that don't support oneness, that don't support unity. And they're all going in different directions, and it's total chaos. And so your test scores are low, right? Because this classroom's test scores were so low until they became to work together. It's like the teacher's pet, right? The little girl that was like, Every time I'd walk in, can I help you with anything? You know, she's just like so chipper. As soon as Vincent started being my personal assistant, she felt like I hated her because that's who she was. She was a teacher's assistant. And after she kind of crashed and burned, she realized that she didn't want to be that. But see, these parts of you that have always been like, don't know who they are if you don't give them a new job. So a CEO, okay, that is like leading the company through guilt is going to misrep their funds, okay? Because the CFO is going to be in charge of all the abundance that you are. And then your employees, which is the rest of your company, is going to basically be doing what those two tell them they're allowed to do, what they're capable of do, and what they're getting paid to do. So this is how you understand that every single person outside of you is one of these 5 aspects. There's a part of you that just triggers you that represents your guilt, shame, anger, loss, or fear. This is why if you go, oh my God, just grew. What do they pull out in you? Do they pull out your guilt? Do they pull out your shame? Do they pull out your fear? Do they pull out your anger? Good. Because what we do is we try to pretend like we're just one person and we're not. We're 6. Okay. And then if you break down the astrology signs, okay, I did that for you guys because some of you were like, what? And the concept of like how this all works is when you become a slave, then what happens is you are basically broken down into all the 13 astrology signs. Okay. And imagine that you are the one, and then the 12 are kind of like your disciples. So Aries, okay, wherever you have Aries in your chart, that's going to be desire for love. Desire for love until it's integrated into love. Taurus is going to be desire for life until it becomes life. Gemini is going to be desire for unity until it becomes unified. Cancer is going to be the desire to feel until it can allow itself to feel. Leo is going to be a desire to lead until you let that lead. Virgo is going to be desire for order because it feels out of order. Libra is going to be a desire for balance coming from imbalance. Scorpio is going to be a desire for passion, for purpose, but it hides in the shadow. Capricorn is going to be that desire for, Sagittarius is going to be desire for adventure, but it's so logical it doesn't believe it can. Capricorn is going to be desire for rooting, foundation, and grounding in that unity. Aquarius is desire for enlightenment, and Pisces is the desire to be understood. Okay? Now, this is just symbolic, but if you're wanting to really go deep with your own parts there and you were looking at your chart on like where things are, I don't really think you need to do any of that. If you keep it simple and you work with your 5 aspects, your guilt, your shame, your fear, your anger, and your loss or your grief. Those are the ones that we worked on in the Alchemy of Play, okay? But where we are now in this ascension process is that if you do not give them a new name, they will stay separate from you because they are in a state of duality because Creator does not recognize you with guilt. Creator does not see you when you operate in guilt. Therefore, your vessel is guilty and therefore it's going to be punished. Think about you as the vessel. Creator is sending the light, but your message is, I must be punished. So Creator's like, I don't know that. I don't know that version of you. So I'm not going to make sure that you get this light. I'm just going to let this light go wherever it's going to go. Okay? Shame is hiding. Creator doesn't recognize you when you hide. Creator doesn't recognize you when you're afraid. Creator doesn't recognize you when you're angry. It recognizes your passion, but not your anger. And it does not recognize you when you're lost because you are always found. So remember, you are the teacher of this classroom. And if you can spend time watching yourself in the mirror when you feel guilty, looking at yourself in the mirror when you feel shame, looking at yourself, then you don't have to kill your ego the way that I have been doing. Is you can just be like, I don't need to kill anything. I just need to rename this. Right? And it's like if you go back and you watch that old school movie at the Breakfast Club, now they got put in detention because they're all naughty, but they had no teacher. And so the idea of that movie was they got stuck together and they had to figure out together how to be stuck in detention for a weekend. But the message of the movie was acceptance. They all got to share their pain and they all got to accept each other differently because they actually all secretly wanted what they all wanted. They all had. Like the nerd wanted to be the jock, right? Because the nerd was the one, like, think about nerds, like, I'm afraid, I need to know everything. I have to be the academic, right? It's like the prom queen is like, okay, yeah, like, this is what I have to do. I have to be what everybody wants me to be. So if you think about what role you played in childhood, remember, there's the 4 aspects of the childhood psychology. It's like the golden child, there's the sick one, right? Or the one that's like the sick one, the problem child, and then there's the helper. Now, if you were an only child, you probably played all 4 of these on some level, or you also could flip. I've seen a lot of like golden childs get real sick because you just kind of snap, right? So you will have to understand is that if you're in the 3rd dimensional reality working into the 5th dimension, you have all 5 of these aspects and you are not broken because of that. This is your starting point and your ending point. And your only job is to find out what guilt actually needs from you and find out how it's protecting you. Because it's protecting you. I even made a list of my own stuff. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, so a question that you can ask guilt is, and you say it to guilt as if it's a separate entity. This will really help you not own everything. All right, now let's keep in mind what your purpose is on this planet is to manifest the thing that you've never had. That's what you're here to do. What you've never been able to have, to hold consistently, is your purpose. Whatever your kryptonite is what you're here to overcome and manifest. So let's look at the thing that you want that you don't have, whether that be security, whether that be money, whether that be a person, place, or thing, that be health, maybe that's understanding. I don't know. Only you know that. Okay. And you ask guilt, you sit in a loving way. You can even hand on your root because that's where it's located. One hand on your heart. And you can say, I know we don't have blank. And you can say, what are you punishing me for? And then let it speak to you. And then you can say, what are you punishing yourself for? Because remember, you get fragmented. So it's punishing you and it's punishing itself. The third question you can ask is, what are you punishing others for? Now, if you've done a lot of work, these might not be very strong at all. You might already have the answer to this, but this is our starting point. So you want to remember that healing is going to be a trinity. So there's going to be 3 aspects to each of these, So it's almost like your forgiveness can be, I forgive myself, I forgive you, you forgive me, right? Like there can be lots of different ways you can do this, but until you understand what guilt is still punishing you for, you're not going to understand why you don't have what you need. You won't, because you're doing everything. You're showing up, you're meditating, you're affirming, you're blessing people, you're praising people. But this isn't an unconscious, this could be generational. This could not even be yours, but you've got to find out how it believes it's yours. And whatever it says, just say thank you. Thank you for sharing with me. I understand. Because you do not want to do things to hurry up or to meet an end. Otherwise, that's not genuine, and your guilt will feel that you're not being genuine. You've got to be very genuine with it. It's not going to move a shift unless you really are like listening. Shame, when you get to shame, okay? What are you hiding me from? What are you hiding yourself from? What are you hiding from others? Only you are going to know that. And you want to just either free write this, free speak it out in nature. And I would say if you write it or speak it, it's going to be a way that it actually keeps you focused. But if you just think it, that's okay too. But what I've seen too is that all these 5 aspects have been so hidden from your consciousness that if you can speak it or write it, they actually feel more seen and heard by you. Then you say, thank you. Thank you for sharing with me. I love you. Whatever it is you want to do, you're not trying to fix anything right now. You're just trying to get all the evidence. You're just collecting data at this point. Because when you get all the way to loss, you're going to see a whole picture form of exactly why you don't have what you need. Okay, when you get to fear, okay, you ask fear, what are we afraid to lose? What are you afraid to lose? What are you afraid for me to lose? What are we afraid to lose in others? Now, the reason why your heart's not open all the way is because anger has taken up land in your heart chakra. So the next one is, what are you angry about? What are you angry at me about? What are you angry at others about? Now, the last one is the throat chakra. And this is going to be where all your loss is, all your constriction, your inability to express your I am is stuck right here. And then you say, what are we grieving? What are you grieving? What are you grieving about me? What are we grieving in others? This is grief and loss. This is fear's worst nightmare. That's why anger's in the middle. Remember, grief is homeless love. Anger is grief's bodyguard. So we can't have heart coherence until shame, guilt, and fear are integrated. Now, this process, if you do it from a loving place, not to just like hurry up and manifest something, if you actually do it from a very loving place, you're going to have a process. There's compassion, there's understanding, there's acceptance. Remember, what guilt needs is to be forgiven by you, by itself, and it needs to be forgiven by others, even if it doesn't get that said. But because you're playing all parts, you can forgive from others to yourself. You can actually get that apology you never got from that narcissist if you say it. Because that narcissist is an aspect of you that you called in to punish yourself. Because guilt needs a punisher. And sometimes if you're too much of an empath, you're not going to punish yourself. So you'll call in a narcissist to punish you because that's what guilt does. I must punish myself. That's why we all attract the narcissist at the perfect time, because we need someone to punish us, whether it's a boss or a sister or a brother or a husband, whatever. We're going to call them in when it's time to really realize that we're punishing ourselves with these choices. Okay? So guilt needs forgiveness. It needs to forgive itself. It needs to be forgiven by others. It needs to be forgiven by you. And then you need to forgive yourself for not seeing this sooner. So that could be 4 different forgivenesses. I forgive myself for not knowing it was here the whole time, trying to make my life work with guilt, which was never going to work. Imagine being a company owner and having your CEO running your company with guilt. You'd be losing money. You'd be going through lawsuits. And then if the CEO is running the company through guilt, then the CFO is not managing money properly. It's not bringing in enough. It's not putting out enough. Okay. So it's you that is finally coming into the classroom. Like, I had to forgive myself for trying to run away from a 6-year-old. So I forgave him once I saw how he was with his dad. I forgave myself for being afraid of him. And then he was able to forgive himself because of that. You see, at least in my classroom. So you have to remember that this is your classroom, and your guilt is going to become forgiveness, and that's going to be your new CEO. Your shame must become acceptance and praise. What does shame need? It feels small, it feels worthless, it needs to be praised, which means if you just are ashamed of your nose, fall in love with that nose of yours and praise it. This is what makes us unique. The things that you are most ashamed about, you need to praise, because you pick those. You pick that nose for a reason. Okay? I picked my 5'0" self for a reason. You've got to go, I praise you for that. So shame needs acceptance and praise. Because when you forgive guilt, it becomes the leader. And now you are literally walking forgiveness. And it's allowed to forgive everyone around them. Someone cuts you off, oh, I get to forgive you because I'm forgiven, right? You see someone walk down the street who doesn't look very good, I get to accept you because I accept myself. Okay? Fear becomes gratitude, which is the most important part of who you are as an action being, is a grateful being. I'm grateful for the pain. I'm grateful for seeing my guilt and turning it in. I'm grateful for turning my shame into acceptance. I'm grateful for being aware of this. I'm grateful for the things that are coming to me that I don't have yet. Gratitude could be literally and become your entire persona and clean up 90% of this. Because gratitude means that I am thankful. I am giving thanks. Therefore, I'm acting like the creator and the creature. And I am already blessed. So instead of fearing what's going to happen, what's going to do this, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that loudmouth cousin to show me where my shame was. I'm grateful for that guy that cut me off so I have someone to bless. Now your whole action of who you are as a being is changed from fearful to grateful. And grateful it's the frequency that's closest to God next to celebration. Your heart that's angry, it's just protecting sadness. So you clean up all of these, your heart can now be free to be love and joy again. So anger, it needs action, which means it needs to be able to be grateful, be forgiving, be accepting. See, when the heart becomes accepting, grateful, forgiving, it activates. Now you're 5D online. You're in 5D now. Now love gets to be love again. Unconditional love, love without conditions. And the loss that you had now turns into your testimony. It turns into your story. It turns into what you get to express to the world. Like, I had guilt too, and I turned it into this. I had shame too, and I turned it, and you're speaking this, and you're sharing this. And now those little butterfly wings in your thymus are turning on. You're activating. You are now expressing yourself from the new you that's online. And now you are running from the quantum field and not the matrix field. You are online with God. God recognizes you fully because you are forgiveness, you are acceptance, you are love, you are strong, you are powerful, you are joy, you are alive. God's like, oh, there you are. I didn't know where you were for a while. You're like, I was lost, now I'm found. And now, because I found myself, now I can help other people find themselves with no judgment. Because I've been lost. I know how guilt acts. I know why someone's an addict. I know why someone is hurting themselves, staying in that bad relationship. I totally understand that because I was doing that too. Because now you have understanding, compassion. And now you don't need to judge someone else's journey because you've already been judged and now you've been set free. So when you start to express yourself from all these healed places, everything comes to you. But there might be things that you physically have to do, right? But we're talking about, this is the stillness part. I would say that this is first seek the kingdom, which is remember that the I am is the teacher. That's the kingdom. And then be still and know. So when you're being still, it's like you're getting to know all these parts of yourself. You're saying, what does this need from me? What does, and again, there might be some amends processes. There might be something your guilt needs you to do. You might need to get rid of certain things now. You might need to put certain things down. You might need to relocate yourself for a few minutes. Like, there might be things that you actually are inspired to do once guilt is transformed. Things will leave your life. Things will come into your life. Because the thing is once that baseline CEO is reset, the CFO can change, the employees will change, right? The message of the company will change. Because think about it, your message is your brand. Not the message you want people to think, but the message that you are. And see, now it's like, I wouldn't change anything about these last 2 years or 3 years, because now I have actually the message that I wanted to have when I first started my journey. But I didn't actually have it because I was working to get success to heal the guilt. I was working to get success to heal the shame. I was working to get the money and the relationship to heal my heart. And you can see that that's not how it works because it's an inside journey. Does this make sense? Okay, so our Jedi mind power is in our will. So once we get over this and we start to work in the reprogramming. So this is all deprogramming, everything I'm showing you guys. And again, I know that I'm not giving you anything that you already haven't been practicing, but even if I give you a little tiny nugget in a different way for you to be able to sit with yourself differently, then I'm fine with that. The next level of this is after we deprogram. Now, who are you going to program yourself as? Now that you're not living your entire life punishing yourself and hiding yourself and being angry with yourself and suffocating yourself, who are you going to be? Well, that goes back to our first amnesia question, because who you are with amnesia is, I accept myself, I forgive myself, I don't know how I got lost, but here I am. Give yourself that opportunity to reset, because your Jedi mind power is going to be in your willpower. And that's what we're going to talk about next week. Because you saying to lift your arm without lifting your arm, your body's like, she's not doing anything. She's telling us to do something, but she's not doing it. Remember, you've got to do something, and I don't mean go to a job. When your ego's like, we need money, do something, you think that that means go out and work. But what that is you need to will it. You have to give the command that is the commander. So it's almost like, think about this. The CEO has a boss. Okay? And maybe it's the same person, But sometimes the CEO is just the first man. So you've got to be above the CEO, which means when you affirm, you have to create a symbolic movement with your body to activate ether. And it could be as simple as, like, I want to move forward. So you put your right leg out. I want to let go of this. And so you can let go with your hands. But you have to do something. And it doesn't mean go work, because you weren't here to work. You're here to be royal. You're here to claim your inheritance. But without your will, you are not calling the universe from your center. You're calling universe from your pain. You're saying, I am wealthy. And then when it doesn't come in, you think that that's because you are not chosen. And the universe is like, she didn't lift her hand. What? Would you guys laugh so hard? Like at the end of the year, this was all it was. Like we just needed to do some subtle movement to give the key. It's like you walk up to your door and you're like, open door. And it's like, she's got the key in her pocket. But you're like, open. And you're like, I'm not powerful or magical. You gotta put the key in. So what you can do is you can take the thing that you literally have never had and understand first, okay, I'm not broken. God still loves me, but I was just letting guilt be my CEO. I was letting this little 6-year-old kid run my classroom. So once you get through with these lessons, start thinking about little symbolic will anchors that represent the feeling. So what I recommend is that whatever you do with your body will, it kind of mimics how it would be if you had it. Okay? Like if you were just so wealthy that you could just go help your entire family, you could live where you wanted, like what would your face look like? Go take a picture of that and then try to recreate that smile. Like, when I used to do back in the day, I would go through these bouts of just raging boredom. So I would take my clients sometimes out for like a higher self photo shoot. And I would say, bring an outfit to the house, because this was when I was in Kansas City and all my clients were in Kansas City. And I would say, bring an outfit that represents your higher self. And then I would show them how to smile with their eyes. I would show them how to like bring that heart outside into their face. Because who your higher self is looks very different than when you're, getting up in the morning, looking at your face in the mirror. And remember that your eyes can smile, your body can smile, right? Andy's really good at this. If you guys watch her like Instagram, you see, and you're like, whoa, she's just like, her whole essence is just smiling. It's like amazing. Go check her out. Yeah, go follow her. So, you know what I mean? But it's like, remember, your will has to be not the commandment, but it has to be like, even when my son's playing baseball, okay, and he's pitching, he's waiting for the command of the catcher, like, right? Remember, you are the problem and the solution. So if you want the problem fixed, then the solution has to say something to you. It could be so subtle. It can be posture changing. It can be a smile. It can be a point. It can be whatever, because what you're saying is I am declaring this and I am intending this. And I'm intending this with something within my biological spacesuit that activates the ether. Now I am intention, I am will, I am thought, I am feeling, and I'm no longer in a contradiction. Because the thing is when you sit with these, you're going to start to see lots of contradictions in your life where you have too much action and not enough vision, not enough vision and too much action. And what happens is when guilt and shame, although they are like a really horrific married couple, they're destroying each other, even though they're trying to work together. Shame is trying to hide guilt. Guilt is trying to like shame or blame shame, for everything that, well, you're hiding us and well, you hurting us. It's like this married couple that's created this little child that's just terrified. And then your inner child is terrified and it's afraid. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to feel. And so then you just get angry. But empaths don't get angry. We get helpful. Okay. So remember, like the main issue is going to be that guilt and that shame. And when you start to find that, then all you're doing is recalibrating. You're reconciling. But you've got to be attentive of this all day, because this is an all day process. This isn't like I did this once. Where's my money? I smiled once. This has to be every time you see lack, you say, I am this, and you change your body into I am. But I'll tell you, if you do the guilt and shame interview, you first do the amnesia interview, and then you do the guilt and shame interview, you won't feel so lacking the next time you attract lack, because you will understand that it's just running its course. And now it's time to reprogram. So the process of writing this out and doing your forgiveness work, and I recommend just doing the Ho'oponopono on all of these, because it covers the gratitude, it covers the forgiveness, it covers the acceptance, and it covers the love. It's like full witness. And you can do Ho'oponopono from 3 different positions. You know, I forgive you, you forgive me, I forgive them. And I would recommend that, because remember, you have fractures that have broken off and do not even believe that there's anyone inside of us creating that issue. So there might be part of you that needs to forgive them, even though it's really you. Okay. Then next week, we're going to start playing in that Jedi energy, where you start to learn to command, declare. This is where you're really going to be able to like get rid of vows and contracts and agreements that you've made, because some of you have come in with poverty agreements. Okay, like I cannot serve God with money, right? Or I don't trust myself with money. Some of you have these really deep vows on your timeline that have nothing to do with you. They're parental, they're generational stuff. Okay, you can look up mom and dad's relationship with money and health and time and all of that to see where those vows might have gotten stuck with you. And if you have guilt, then you're going to want to punish yourself just like they did. Even if you don't think you are, even if you think you're doing everything right, you're still doing it unconsciously. Because unconsciously, you could be saying no to money and not even know you're saying no, because you're working your butt off. So next week, we're going to start programming with will, with symbols. We're going to like create energetic tattoos in our space that represent the new command, the new authority guilt's going to have, that's now forgiveness. And now we're going to give authority out, and we're going to create a unified field of our own auric space, and you will see that things are going to change. Okay? But do not need things to change. Remember, the whole purpose of this is so we change. If we do this to change something outside of us, it's not authentic and it won't happen. But if you do it because you are really ready to be whole, because you are, and to be fulfilled instead of, angry, it's like you don't want to have an angry heart anymore. Because a lot of you don't think you have angry hearts, but you do. And I'll tell you, you should. Because you not living your divine purpose should be an invalidation of your soul. You settling for less than you came here should piss you off. You're allowed to get mad that you don't have what you're supposed to have. Because if you had that amnesia and you were like woke up, right? And you were dressed how you would dress as your higher self, and you'd be like, take me to my villa. And they were like, you live in the ghetto. You would be like, what? It's like that movie Overboard, right? Where I think it was Goldie Hawn. She was like this rich, like narcissistic, spoiled, ungrateful woman. And she had this contractor that was working for her, and she was super mean to him, and they were on a yacht, and she fell overboard and got amnesia. So he decided to punish her and tell her that she was his wife and come live on their poor farm with their horrible kids. But they ended up falling in love, right? So keep in mind that when you think of amnesia, you're going to see your noble royal energy that is underneath all that pain, And that, I hope, will motivate you to clear this. Because all we're doing is going back to factory settings. That's it. Okay, guys, I've kept you long enough. Did you get something out of this? Okay, before you watch any class or do anything, please ground, anchor, set intentions, and focus. Bring all parts of you in, otherwise you're wasting your time. All right, you might as well have everybody there, even if it's uncomfortable. Okay, shame's allowed to be there while you go through guilt, and fear's allowed to be there. You don't have to do them one at a time. And you just have to be that teacher that just keeps putting everybody back in their place of love until everybody gets a turn. Okay? All right, I love you guys. See you soon. Bye.